Hello, Simon Chilembo here. This is a follow-up to the presentation I made on Monday as a response to the current Afro-Xenophobia debacle in South Africa. I responded poetically with the poem The Blood Curse, Africa Burning, Divide and Conquer, Necro-Power Games. In that poem, I'm reflecting on the reality that everybody has the potential to have blood on their hands. If not, everybody has, actually blood on their hands. Murder is murder. Network power is rule, is dominance, is influence through death, through murder. And it doesn't matter, who commits murder, under what circumstances. Murder is murder. If South Africans are murdering African immigrants, they are not different from people in other African countries, murdering their own. It's the same shit. In this book here, Machona, there's a scene in Lusaka where South African exile, a young man, provokes extremely a group of Zambian youths at a nightclub. And this South African young man is playing on the superiority complex. That's characteristic of South Africans towards Africa, and especially during the days of apartheid. I'm arguing that all this shit is simply an extension, is a manifestation of the divide and conquer principle that was developed by the British and other colonialists during the colonial days and perfected during the apartheid. During the apartheid, yes, in South Africa. Now, South African exiles in Zambia, I can only speak about Zambia because, that's what I know. I never lived in Tanzania, never been to Nigeria, but I was in Zambia for 13 years, 1975, 1988. So, I've seen things. The immediate post-1976 generation, of youths who managed to escape, get into Zambia, they find, veterans there, it was a mixed masala, of people from everywhere in South Africa. But of course, everybody claimed they came from Soweto, I'll come to that aspect of Soweto, where everybody who came to South Africa claimed they came from South Africa. It's like everybody who comes from United States, they say they come from New York. If it's the UK, they come from London, and Zambians get very upset by this patronizing, this rudeness, extreme rudeness of this South African refugee. And Zambians are pushed beyond the tipping point. The ultimate result being that this South African exile youth eventually dies. South Africans came into exile, like I said, with this mentality, that they were better than, they were superior to, Africans. And given the social, economic situation in Zambia at that time, this fantasy suited the South African mentality very well. times were hard in Zambia. We used to queue for literally days on end, for loads of bread. Let me say, during all those 13 years I lived in Zambia, there was, an acute shortage of, essential commodities, it's called basic foods, including salt, that supermarkets were empty. And that everybody knows, that was thanks to Zambia through the President Kaunda's, hardcore anti-apartheid stance. South Africa simply closed off, the Zambia's link to the sea. Zambia is an inland country. It's an landlocked country, sorry. And everybody knows, the sacrifices that Zambia made, for South Africa. So that's not, it shouldn't even be an issue, And but the point is that the most fundamental thing that the Zambia could give was the protection of these refugees. Give them shelter, give them places to stay, basic amenities here and there. However, what is overlooked by many is that the solidarity, international anti-apartheid solidarity movement supported, materially, financially, in a huge way, the exile community in Zambia. Yeah, there was money, there was food, there was, all practical things, transportation and all that. And that entailed the reality that compared to their hosts, the South African refugees, exiles, actually enjoyed, especially the elite class of the liberation movements, the ANC, mainly in Lusaka. They enjoyed a very high standard of living. If you went to the residences, of the comrades and all, there was never a shortage of food. There was always a surplus of food. And, they had clothes, they had, everything. They had, cars, fancy cars, and, they had power, So that, of course, in the small minds, of these exiles, it was because, we're better, we're superior. That's why, everybody understands, you've got to have, you've got to live well, And many, of these exiles were just ordinary people, came from abject poverty. Not many people were rich, in apartheid, yes. That again should be a given, that apartheid thrived, from colonialism. You subject people to poverty, you deny people access to things that lead, to wealth, accumulation, education, ownership of property, ownership of land, So the vast majority, of South African exiles in Zambia, were, ordinary people, poor, poverty-stricken. They started to enjoy, this high life. And there were, of course, good, decent, humble South African. There's always, this, bad potatoes, these few bad potatoes, who destroy, who tarnish, the image of the bigger group in a big way. So I'm not saying that all South African exiles were bad, bad attitude, no. But I'm saying that, there were some who were really bad, that they didn't respect their hosts, they're very rude, they were very uppity, and they abused, the power, the privileges they had, to destroy, many people's lives, such that it is known, that strange things would happen, happened, to some of our people, South African exiles, And things turn around after 1994, or even years leading, to 1994 in the 80s. As times get harder in Zambia, in any society, it is always the most resourceful, of people, in terms of, what they have in their brains and how they use their brains, their intellect, they're educated, hustlers, who are able to see opportunities here and there, It's always those, who will move out, to in search of, or having identified, greener pastures, they will go. So Zambian intellectuals and professionals began to migrate into South Africa, looking for greener pastures in the homelands, and all these places, and such that, by the time 1994 comes, after Mandela supposedly sold, gave away the land to the whites, bullshit, And so Mandela gives away, the ANC gives away, the land, to the white people and all. And South Africa comes up, with this fantastic constitution, that places, the fundamental human rights, at the core. So everybody moves into South Africa because things are happening. Now, you got to understand, that the colonialism, South Africa is this magic, this myth that was created during colonialism, during colonial days, as and it lived up to, that myth, that magic, because of, its strategic placement, at the base of Africa. Those who've studied history, you will know, when in terms of, sailing around the continent, to the Far East, between Europe and Far East, and we know that strategic importance, and the climate, favored people of European origin, especially in the south, and the coast, and it's beautiful, and you get to the eastern coast, KZN, very fertile, that get fantastic, the tropical climate, so you get everything. Food is plentiful, that, and then you come inland, and there's other, natural resources there, the minerals, diamonds, gold, etc., platinum, now, and so South Africa, lived up to that magic, and it still, is that magic, that huge, magnet, that draws, the scum, and the best brains, of Africa, if not the rest of the world. But here we are looking at Africa. So when the door opens, everybody, I speak in general terms, everybody should understand that it's a manner of speaking, flows into South Africa, because that's where the action is, that's where the opportunities are. I've argued that, I argue in my books that, I know this, I lived through this, I've seen this, it's not just my fantasy, The first generation, the earliest generation of migrant laborers from Africa, into South Africa, were very simple people. They were impoverished from their villages in Zambia, Malawi, Zimbabwe, some as further up as Tanzania, the Congo, but when it comes to, the British colonies, you had Malawi, Nyasaland formerly, and then Zambia, Northern Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, formerly Southern Rhodesia. These were deliberately, structured to be suppliers of cheap labor to this South African magic, of industrialization, of mining, and agriculture, commerce, all that, that was the plan. It was deliberately meant, these places would be poor, through many factors, that you can go into, another time. But people must read, people must research these things, So I'm arguing in my books, in my stories, that and research, history, documents this, that people in these three former colonies, Nyasaland, Northern Rhodesia, and Southern Rhodesia, you go into Mozambique, and all that, they, they, you might say, they were programmed, to aim for South Africa if they were going to survive, and then that's how it worked. Now, the key point I'm trying to make here is that these people were poor, they had nothing. They're very simple, and many were, semi-illiterate, if not illiterate altogether. So they presented no threat to South Africa. Maybe they took, the most beautiful South African women, which is very common. My father met and married this woman here, okay, very beautiful woman. And these people were so lowly paid, that they couldn't fulfill, their ambitions, their dreams of, working in South Africa, sending money back home and improve their lives of their own people. They couldn't, and especially when they now, settle in South Africa, they basically get stuck, and they have children and all that, and it's a hopeless situation. But those who come, with the Rainbow Nation, yes, Africans who come at that time, you must remember, they were this lead, for 30, 40, maybe 50 years, since independence, since the 1950s. They have, they have education, they have capital, they have connections, they have international connections. Many of them, had already traveled the world, so they're in reality more sophisticated than South Africans. That's a given. So of course, they will be faster, in getting things to rock and roll for them, get jobs, and get into businesses, and in an open, competitive economy like South Africa, you work and get what you get, and you're able to send money to your country, and live happily ever after. Up until South Africans, black South Africans, respond and react to the arrogance of power that many people from Africa come with into South Africa. This, again, superiority complex, I don't forget how we were ridiculed in Zambia, South Africans, that we were stupid, on the one hand, South Africans, come with their apartheid, superiority complex stupidity, and Zambians on the other end, they say, no, we black South Africans are stupid, we are weak, and this is why, whites in South Africa are not, giving us our land, we are not strong enough, we are stupid, blah, 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 and all that. And so when the Africans come into Zambia, come into South Africa, they come with that attitude, that South Africans are stupid, they are slow, they are afraid of whites, and all. They are uneducated, all that, and they play this out very openly, and then South Africans, I argue also, in this, in my writings, that in any society, the marketplace is the people's meeting place. So when shit hits the fan, it starts, in business, centers. So it's not strange, that, when South Africans respond, and react, they will ban shops, they will destroy, business infrastructure, because that's where, things are happening. And this is where, this interaction, this mind games, of who is better and who is stupid, and who is weak, and, this where all these dynamics, plays itself. It's only natural. And so I'm fascinated, by how people are in the analysis, of this process, how it is so one-sided, that South Africans are bad, are stupid, ungrateful, blah 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 blah, and the South Africans and the South African, everything, and but nobody seems to want to address, or ask for, or hint, that there can be also accountability on the other side, on the side of African migrants. South Africans, nobody just wakes up, unless they're crazy, and nobody under normal circumstances, nobody just wakes up and decides they hate somebody. There has to be a reason. So when white supremacists, hate black people, they have their own reasons. We threaten them, and we make their race, impure, and they have their reasons. So when we go, and fight against the, white supremacy madness, we know exactly, what we are up against. So we can work out appropriate strategies, but why? What has made South Africans to click, to this degenerative level? It takes two to tango. So I'm arguing, that it's a very simple case here. Foreigners in general, it's when you are a guest. I was raised this way, that this is my upbringing, my family, that humility is the most essential, but it should be a matter of course, that when you are a guest, in people's homes, in people's countries, humility, is supposed to be, the most natural thing you as a guest, should show to your host. Arrogance and, that, showing the lack of respect, total disdain, for your host, for whatever reason, it's really bad. People can only tolerate only so much. At some point, that tipping point, people click, and then you have the situation, that we are seeing in South Africa now. So I'm saying, that, foreigners in South Africa, Africans in South Africa, have also to introspect and look at them, at themselves, what have they done or have they not done to cause South Africans to degenerate to this level? Thank you very much. Again, if there's people wanted to interact with me, read my books, read my blog, Chilembo Warrior Moves, go to chilembo.com and you'll see all this, and I don't preach absolute truths. I'm not interested in that. But, I think I reflect. I went to school. I was taught how to read and write and think and write, So I don't, I don't just take things, at face value. South Africans are mad